Hi all, welcome to the Polco Minute, where you hear the latest best practices and news in local government and civic engagement. I'm Angelica Waddell with this week's headlines. Our first article today focuses on some innovative ways that cities are tackling vaccine distribution with the help of corporate partnerships. Writer Annie Osborne from National League of Cities says that local leaders are presented with many challenges when it comes to vaccinations. There are issues of equity, public trust, logistics, allocation of resources. But conversations with local leaders, health experts, and community organizations have brought to light one very important recurring theme. Everyone involved in the vaccine distribution process says that corporate partnerships are key. Private sector businesses are stepping up to help local governments meet the many challenges presented by the pandemic. And with their help, our communities are strengthening their vaccine response. A great example of a local government working with a corporate partner can be found in Commerce City, Colorado. There, local officials have teamed up with Broadnet, a trusted multimedia communications company. Together, they are working to increase engagement in Commerce City's most hard-to-reach communities. These include residents without internet-connected devices and older populations who are uncomfortable with digital tools. The partnership also targets non-English speaking residents, as well as Black, Indigenous, Latino, Hispanic, and other residents of color. By offering virtual telephone town hall services, the local government is able to reach their residents on the device of their choice. Events can be live streamed on websites and social media, and this is great for most residents. But for those hard-to-reach communities, Broadnet has made it possible for residents to participate by telephone. The platform is designed to call residents when the event starts, provide text messaging options, and more. With Broadnet's help, Commerce City hosted a series of 17 events, reaching nearly 80,000 English and Spanish-speaking residents on the phone and online. Providing access to important decision makers in the community is really crucial for building an effective vaccine strategy. And with the help of corporate partners like Broadnet, city governments are better able to convey updates and make sure everyone has access to the timely information that they need. Our next article today focuses on how libraries can increase their community engagement. This can be a challenge at any time, but even more so in the midst of a pandemic. That's why community leaders in places like Altoona, Iowa, are finding innovative solutions. The Altoona Public Library is required to create long-term plans every 3 years. Normally, these plans would be made after tons of community feedback from in-person meetings, but obviously that has not been an option since the pandemic started. Instead, the library turned to Polco and our civic engagement platform. Together, we were able to design and distribute a 10-minute survey to residents in the community, and those survey responses greatly informed the latest round of long-term plans for the library. Altoona also used a Polco survey to develop their emergency response plan. In the survey, residents were asked how they would want the library to react in future times of crisis. And resident responses actually surprised local officials. The feedback resulted in a plan focused more on minimizing service disruptions rather than restoring in-person services. As it turns out, Altoona residents want their library to remain a place of normalcy, and being there in person wasn't the most important factor. The most important thing to residents was that library services would continue to operate with as few interruptions in service as possible. These community insights were gained using tools included in the Polco Library Toolkit. These engagement tools are developed by survey scientists and are reviewed by professionals in the field, and they're making a big difference one community at a time. Our final article today shares with us some amazing more effectively. A recent study was the first of its kind to examine the psychological consequences of spending hours every day on video calls. Study author Jeremy Bailenson from Stanford University discovered 4 primary reasons that we experience Zoom fatigue. The first cause has to do with excessive amounts of close-up eye contact. Video calls force us to engage in much larger amounts of prolonged eye contact. In a normal meeting, people would look elsewhere, they would take notes, or they'd be viewing a presentation. But on Zoom calls, everyone is looking at everyone else all the time, and this creates stress. In addition to this, the faces are often a lot closer and larger than they would be in real life. In fact, our brains may interpret the size and proximity of these faces as a threat. Being this close to someone in real life usually implies one of two extremes, intimacy or conflict. To combat the stress of big faces and too much eye contact, take your call out of full screen mode. Use an external keyboard and provide yourself some personal space. The second issue to address involves fatigue from constantly seeing your own face during video calls. It's like someone following you around all day with a mirror, and it's not too healthy. To combat this challenge, Bailenson recommends finding hide self option once you know that you're properly framed in the video. The third challenge we face with video calls is that they drastically reduce our mobility. In person, on the phone, and even in physical meetings, we have the ability to move around a little. But with video calls, the field of view is limited, and this results in us staying in exactly the same spot for prolonged periods of time. So to deal with this, Bailenson recommends an external camera set up farther away. This can allow you a little more distance and flexibility. And it's also important here is being able to turn off the camera from time to time and have a brief nonverbal rest. And finally, Zoom fatigue happens because video communication is just simply more difficult. In regular face-to-face interactions, nonverbal communication is natural and often unconscious. But in the virtual world, we have to work much harder to send and receive these nonverbal signals. The answer to this challenge is to take an audio-only break, just as we mentioned for mobility. Turn your camera off, but also be sure to turn your body away from the screen. You need a few moments without working to interpret so many gestures and so many faces all at once. And you deserve a break. Thanks for watching the Polco Minute with me. My name is Angelica Waddell, Director of Communications at Polco National Research Center. Polco makes it easy for local governments to get accurate and reliable feedback from their communities. How are you keeping up with today's engagement issues and trends? Join a panel discussion with other local government leaders and us nationwide. And connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.